Hi, thanks for joining me for Let's Be Creative with LBC. My name is Tracy Sawyer and I am part of the Education and Community Engagement team. So today's project is the second of 3 episodes that will focus on making an art journal or a scrapbook that you can use to put photos, projects, drawing, musings, pictures, whatever it is that you have into an art journal that you make yourself. You could run to Michael's, I suppose, and buy one, but why buy one when you can make one? It's way more fun. So in the first episode, the first thing we did was we got a cereal box and we covered it with newspaper using Mod Podge. So we'll come back to this in a few minutes. The next thing we need to concentrate on for our book is binding. So there are many ways to bind a scrapbook or an album. You can use rings. This has little rings on it with bows. You can use staples and staple it together. You could sew something if it wasn't too thick. This project will be too thick, I think, for sewing, but it would work. This one is kind of cool. In it, there are papers folded on the inside that are adhered to the edge, and then it creates pages that can be put in the book. What we're going to do is we're going to make, gosh, what are they called? We are going to make regular binding for this project. It isn't the easiest thing to do, but it is really fun and I think you'll enjoy it. So because I am a crafter and a card maker and I like to play with paper, I save things. I have lots of supplies that I keep just in case I have some kind of a project to make. So what I have on hand are old calendars from over the years that I like, and I hold on to them, and that's what we're going to use to bind today's project. The paper on a calendar is usually got a decent heft like this. It'll hold its form once it's folded into place, and I think and I have plenty of these pages, so if you need a calendar page to make this, let me know and I will share with you. All right, so you want the binding to have an even creases. So you can go about this a couple of different ways. One is with a ruler and pen, and what you would want to do is mark the page at a 1 inch all the way across the top of the page. You will do it on the top, and again on the bottom. And I already did it on the bottom. So that way I can run my ruler over the 2 lines to create a straight line that I will fold from. So let's just do a couple here as an example. So you'll draw together the 2 marks at 1 inch, so that way you have guidelines for making the folds on the calendar page. Now if you don't have calendar pages, you could use heavy cardstock. It tends to get brittle, so it's a little bit harder. You could also use paper, but it kind of depends on the pages you want to put inside your album. I want to use cardstock or even more calendar pages, so I need something that has a little bit more stability. All right, so I've got my lines on the paper that go vertically here, and I am going to start my folds. So I'm going to do a soft fold until I see the line on the page, and then I'm going to crease it and give it a really good crease so that it holds. Then I'm going to turn it the other way and do the same thing. And then the other way. It doesn't actually matter if you go back and forth, because what you're going to want to do is fold and unfold this several times so that it gets a really good crease. So we'll just finish this up. All right, almost there. This is great exercise. You should try it. All right, so now I have my folds. You can see that how they have it's an accordion type fold on here. And from this, I will use, I don't have the paper ready, but I will use glue stick I will glue here put my paper, my pages on the inside, and then glue the other side to hold it down. I used clamps on the example that I made to keep it together for a couple days so that it would stay tight. That's how this is here, okay? And so the other way you could do it, if you happen to have a paper trimmer, this is a 12-inch paper trimmer that I got a long time ago. You would pop out the cutting mechanism, because you don't need that. Pop your paper into in here, mark it to 1 inch and score it. You can score it with this bone folder or a pin like this, and it'll give it a little bit of a score line. Then you would move it down a 1/2 inch, or excuse me, 1 inch, until you're already done, and then you would fold it in the same way. This gives you a score line that makes it a little bit easier to fold, but if you don't have a paper trimmer, you don't have to do that. So this is the process to create your binding. Another advantage of a calendar is that they're usually oversized pieces of paper, and so you can get more folds. If you don't get enough folds out of the paper you're using, it is just fine to layer this piece and this piece together to get as many pages into your scrapbook album as you want. Okay, so we'll pick this up a little bit more next time. Your homework is going to be to find your material, a piece of calendar page. You could use watercolor paper. Actually, any kind of art paper would work. Things that you use for crafting, something that just has got a little bit heavier weight. So your homework is to get your calendar or whatever material you're going to make and create your binding for the page, which is basically a Z-fold. Is that a Z-fold? A Z-fold that you want to get nice and crisp and flat. Okay, then the second part of this is moving on with the Mod Podge. And I hope you've had as much fun with Mod Podge as I have. So in the first episode, we got a Cheerios box, trimmed it to size, and then we layered newsprint, putting pieces of newsprint on top of this paper. So one thing you have to be mindful of when you're doing Mod Podge is not to rush it. You need to let each layer dry. So Mod Podge is an adhesive and a sealer. So there was a layer of Mod Podge underneath this newspaper, and then I put newspaper on top. And so today we get to seal it. And after that, we can start layering other goodness on top of it. So for this part of the project, you obviously need Mod Podge. That's maybe not something you have laying around the house, but it is a great thing to play with. And like I said, it's a great sealer, and there's not too many things that you can't seal with Mod Podge. So right now, I'm just putting a generous layer of Mod Podge on top of the newspaper. You might see that it's lifted. How can I show you? It's lifted up on all the pieces are down. And that is just fine, because by the time I'm done Mod Podging it, all the pieces will be firmly glued down right where we want them, and then we can go to step B, the third step, which will be the next episode. So when I'm done Mod Podging this layer, it will have this kind of a sheen on it, and then we can start layering on top of that the design we want on top of our art journal. With Mod Podge, you can put as many layers and layers of things that you want. So it's not a one and done. You can work on it over a period of time, add a name, add a title, put flowers, put more flowers, whatever you want. But we'll go into that next time. I hope you enjoyed this process. I do want you to get out there and get your art journal and scrapbook made, and then join me next time and we will compile our scrapbook, our art journal and scrapbook, put it all together, and then add parts to it. Okay, thanks for joining me. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. for more arts content with LBC.